first started playing guitar solos as a kid, improvising and messing around with scales, I didn't fully understand what I was doing. I knew that some notes sounded better than others and some sounded totally wrong, and sometimes I'd hit those notes and think, ugh, don't do that again. What if I told you there was a simple way to eliminate that problem and help you make tasteful musical choices when improvising and writing guitar solos? Well, we can with something called target notes. So in this three-part series, I'm going to teach you how to give your lead playing melodic shape and structure. We'll start with the basics, learning what the notes are, where the notes are, and then when to play them, building a solid understanding before we go on to play more sophisticated licks. In short, chords are a small group of notes, and we can target those notes within our melodies to heighten the different chords and the harmony within them. Today we're going to learn how to play a simple solo over a 12-bar blues chord progression in the key of A. It has 3 different chords, A7, D7 and E7, and follows a pretty common form. So you may have heard the term 1, 4 and 5 thrown around before, and a lot of people get confused with that kind of stuff, but it's actually really simple. If you count up an A major scale, 1, you get the A, the root note, then you go B, C sharp, D, you get the perfect 4th, and then E is the perfect 5th. So we're referring to the root note of each chord, 1, 4 and 5, A, D and E. So the lead line that I've created for part 1 will always resolve to the root note of that chord, just to keep it simple to begin with. Let's take a look at the first guitar solo. So our chord progression has 3 chords in it. You've got an A7, which we're going to refer to as chord 1, D7, chord 4, and E7, chord 5. And that's where the famous term 1-4-5 comes from. If someone says, let's do a 1-4-5 in A, you've got A, D, and E. 1-4-5 in B, you've got a B, E, and an F sharp. So in my example, all of my phrases resolve to the root note of that chord. Makes it really simple, but it's a great introduction to this concept if you've never soloed thinking this way before, and it'll help you build up from there. So whilst the root notes of our chords appear here, here, and here, we're actually going to go into the scale a little bit further because it's 2 octaves, and we're going to find a couple of other places that we can play the A, the D, and the E. So our A is going to be the 7th fret of the D string. Our D is going to be the 7th fret of the G. And the E we're going to play is on the 5th fret of the B. You can play A here, and you can play D here, you can play E here, like I said, but just for our example, that's where we're playing them, right in the middle. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you one lick that resolves to A, one lick that resolves to D, and one that resolves to E. And then you can either try and copy my example, or you can get the tab and the backing track from my Patreon, or you can just then go on and make your own licks up, which is the idea, and you don't have to just play a premeditated solo that I've come up with for this exercise. So the first chord is A, 7, so we're going to resolve to an A. Now I slide from the 5th fret of the D into the 7th fret with the 3rd finger. Then I go to index on the G, fret 5, 3rd finger on the 7, on the G, and then I come down to the A with the 2nd finger. Now here, what you can do, you could maybe jam half a bar on the chord as well. What that'll help you do is, one, memorize the chord progression and sort of learn to anticipate upcoming changes, and two, you're going to learn where all your notes are and grow your confidence. Now, when we change to D7, we're going to play that on the 7th fret of the G. And I kept the lick very comparable because I wanted you to see what a difference it makes just changing that last note to resolve on the same note as the root of the chord. So it's exactly the same. But instead of going down to the A at the end, we actually go back to the 5th fret of the G with the index and hammer that down to the 7. And you can just tell immediately it's changed to the D7. And what's cool about this is if you take away the chord progression and you just started soloing by yourself, someone came in, they should generally be able to hear the movement of the chord progression because you're dictating that with your melody. It's not just random noodling, it's got structures to it based on chord progression that you're thinking about in your head. So you could tell then, hopefully, I went A, A, D, A. And it had structure, even though I was just playing by myself. You can hear the band in your head. So when we go up to the E7, the 5 chord, we're going to the 5th fret of the B string. Now, in my example, I actually slid in from the 4 below. Now, if you're wondering what that note is, it's called a flat 5. It's actually the blues note. You've probably played it here and here, but we can also play it on the 4th fret of the B string. And again, the reason I did that, it's kind of going beyond what we're doing here, but I just wanted to give it a little bit more character and not make it too bland. So we make our way up the same lick, and then we just slide from the 4 into the 5. You can tell it's gone to the E, to the D7, and then back to A, our root. So it's a simple concept. It's 3 chords, A7, D7, E7, 1, 4, and 5. And we're learning to play phrases within the scale and then make educated decisions on where we're going to resolve our phrases. So I definitely have myself down as a better writer than an improviser, but I'm still using the same tools and skill set to come up with that final product. So, you know, if you can't improvise as good as Steve Vai, you know, as free and as creative and as wild straight off the bat, doesn't mean that you can't sit down and loop something around for an hour and come up with something incredible, because you're still using the same methods to arrive at a melody that sounds great. If you want the tab for this, it is on my Patreon. It's annotated, highlighted, super clear, and there's a backing track there which gives you loads of space to jam over after my opening example. It's been on there for a couple of weeks now, and the guys said that they find it really interesting and very useful, and they were excited for the lesson. So let's say you use a different YouTube backing track, but the chord progression is slightly different. That's absolutely fine. It's actually a good thing. It'll keep you on your toes. Let's say it goes A, D, A, which is a common kind of alternative form for a 12 bar. You could open on the A, up to the D, back down to the A, and so on. And I would actually encourage that, because then you're taking what you've learned and applying it to something that isn't premeditated and provided by me, and genuinely improvising and creating your own melodies, your own solos. So what I want you to do with this is grow your confidence with the note placement across the fretboard. I only covered one octave of the A, the D, and the E, but obviously you can find them all over the fretboard throughout the different positions. So whilst it's a simple solo and it's rhythmically repetitive, it will give you a solid foundation in creating melodic phrases. In the next video, we're going to add another interval from each chord. This time it will be the major third. And that brings a whole new flavor to the melodies that we can create. All right, guys, thanks for checking out this lesson on target notes. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.